This is Brennan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and today I'm going to be reviewing Blade of Fury, a 1993 Sammo Hung film put out by Golden Harvest, and this is the Warner Archive Collection version. These are fairly inexpensive, and I guess it's allowing them to re-release things they might not otherwise be able to put out there. So it's readily available. You know, I like to review things that people can get their hands on without much trouble. So the only problem with these is they're manufacture on demand, and that means that the discs are a little more sensitive to sunlight. I think there might be a few other minor quality issues with them, but the image quality looks fine, at least on first viewing. So I'm going to try to get through this series as best I can. I already reviewed one, and this is the second one that I'll be reviewing. I really like this movie a lot. Before I do my review, I just want to explain my review process, because I noticed something when I looked at other people's reviews. So I think sometimes I create the impression that all of that I like every movie I see because all my reviews are favorable, and the reason for that is I only review movies I like. So if I dislike a movie, I just don't review it or talk about it, unless it's like I dislike it so much I need to get it off my chest. But I don't think I've done that in a long time, and I certainly don't think I've done it on the video blog. So unless it's really really bad, or I really like it, or like it enough that I would recommend it to people, I tend to not do a review, because I wouldn't know what to say for about 5 to 10 minutes. That sometimes I'll get movies with the intent of reviewing them, and I won't because of that. So when The Assassin came out, the 2015 version, I saw that. A lot of people liked it. It just wasn't for me. I didn't really enjoy it, so I didn't review it. I liked the actress in it. I liked the director. I just didn't. That particular movie, I just had some issues with, and so I couldn't get into it. So I didn't review it. This movie, I saw it, and from the very first scene, which if you've seen my blog posts before, you know that that's a real big thing for me. This thing had me right at the beginning. It opens with this wonderful sword form that was just really energetic and sharp, and I just thought it was brilliant. I'm a real big fan of 90s wuxia movies, and I think that the genre and the stunt work and the performances and the swordplay all really reach an apex here. So I'm a little bit biased, but I really really liked the movie, and I was curious what other people thought of it, because I hadn't seen it before. I hadn't really heard anything about it that much, and it's a Sammo Hung film. It's a little bit unusual for a Sammo Hung film. It's not what leaps to mind for me when I think Sammo Hung. This is a period wuxia piece with a lot of a lot of costumes, a lot of gorgeous cinematography, a lot of poignant moments, and it's maybe a lot less playful than some of his other movies. There's still playful elements to it, especially the fight choreography, but it's just not what leaps to mind when I think of Sammo Hung. This seems like a much more serious, stately kind of a film at times. So I went online to check what the general consensus was, and I think a lot of people didn't like this movie. I didn't count all the reviews. I wasn't able to really get a clear objective sense, but I saw a lot of reviews that were critical of the storyline, critical of the performances, critical of the use of undercranking, which is my understanding is that's when they film it slower, so that when they play it back, the action looks faster. I might have that reversed, but basically it's when it looks like things are sped up on camera. And there was also some criticism of the dramatic moments in the film, saying that they didn't work, that they weren't believable, and some expressed confusion about the story. That the story just didn't make a lot of sense. I didn't agree with any of these opinions. I think people are totally entitled to their point of view. It's a movie, but I just didn't get that from this film. I thought that the dramatic moments worked brilliantly, and they worked largely because Ti Lung is playing a major role in this film, and most of the dramatic moments really revolve around him and his relationship with a disciple played by Cynthia Kwan. So I thought it was, these were exceptionally well done dramatic moments in the film. And if you watch wuxia, you get used to sort of the bouncing back between like really high intense action, comedy, and then drama, and some sobbing, and then back into the comedy and action. And so I don't know. I thought it worked. I thought it worked. I thought it hit that button perfectly. I didn't get the criticism of performances. These are some of the best in terms of martial arts. These are some of the best performances I've seen. They're all exceptionally tight. The actor who plays Wang Wu in this, his name is Yang Fan. I haven't seen him in much, but he was exceptional. I was blown away by his performance. I thought that like he's the one that was in the opening scene with the sword form. I thought that was just a highly athletic, completely on point form. And I say that as somebody who's both a fan of martial arts movies, but also somebody who participated in martial arts. And back when I did traditional martial arts, you had to do forms. So I thought it looked gorgeous. And throughout the whole movie, there was that. The storyline to me wasn't confusing, and it's based on historical events. I think I think it's the Hundred Days Reform, which was a period at the end of the Qing Dynasty when there was sort of like a power play between the emperor and the empress dowager, and basically the main character Wang Wu in this movie is in the middle of that, and he owns a martial arts school, and he's basically got to decide, does he go with the conservative officials that are allied with the Empress Dowager, or does he side with Ti Lung's character, Tan Si Tung, who's a reformer that wants to sort of reinvigorate the Chinese state. So these are historical characters. Wang Wu is a person who's became famous in the Boxer Rebellion. Tan Si Tung is somebody who's famous from this particular historical incident. I don't want to really spoil the film for people, but the point is the storyline is based on history. It's based on stories that emerged out of the history. Some of them are more rooted in truth than others. There are tales that have kind of developed around some of these events that have become fodder for films and stuff. And so they're limited in where they can go with that. They can't, they can only deviate from history so much. They can only add to history so much. And this is a history that they're assuming the viewers, which is going to be a Chinese audience, are familiar with. So I don't think it's a real. I think at least on those grounds, it wasn't. The story. You can't really be as critical of it in that sense. And I think the story worked. It was very simple. I mean, I basically just described the plot line. I found it incredibly easy to follow along. They do go into other tangents, but they all add to the film. They all make you care more about the characters or explain the characters a little bit better. And by the end, all the different branches that they might have explored, even if they don't necessarily lead anywhere conclusive, they add to the film. So I didn't have any issues with the story or any of that. And if I did, I just wouldn't be reviewing the film. So I thought some of the reviews were maybe a little bit unfair of this movie. Maybe people won't agree with me. So I did want to mention that there were these other negative reviews. I didn't see. I saw one where the reviewer seemed to agree with some of my points, but the others that I saw, I didn't. Most of them looked pretty negative or unimpressed. Again, I thought the fights were great. This is a Sammo Hung movie, and the fight sequences are really well shot. They're really well choreographed, and the performances are all very athletic and on point. And the mix of weaponry is really great. So there's a scene in here with Cynthia Kwan against a guard at one of the local officials' like estates, and she's wielding a spear and he's wielding a meteor hammer, and you get a lot of those kinds of fights where there's a nice match of weaponry. The main sword in this, Wang Wu is famous for using like a really big broadsword, and so they do a really great job of making that look exciting. You can really blow a short, thick sword and make it look crappy on camera, I think, and they did an excellent job of making it look powerful but swift and deadly, and again, the athleticism of the performances is what I think really appeals to me with these 90s wuxia. Now, they did do the undercranking at times. Again, it's a Sammo Hung film, so I don't, sometimes people assume if there's undercranking, they're trying to disguise something, make the actors look like they're moving fast or that kind of thing. The performances maybe weren't as good. I don't think that's what was going on here at all. I think the performances were good. I think the undercranking was a creative choice. It was also a choice of the time. There are plenty of movies I've seen from that period that have the undercranking in it. Sometimes it looks better, sometimes it doesn't. Holy Flames of the Martial World is a great example of a film where I thought the undercranking worked really well. This is another one where I think it worked really well, and you know, and they're using it on veteran performers like Sammo Hung himself, who you know is not you know, not trying to cover up a bad performance. I mean, he's one of the greats, and there's no sign of any, you know, of any slip ups, or you know, being tired or any of that. So I think it was just a creative choice here. That's just my opinion. I'm not a film expert. You know, maybe other people will disagree, but hold on one second. My wife's here. Um, so so yeah, so I thought it was a really good movie. I enjoyed it a lot, and I think that it's you know, that it was really nice to see T Lung in this role. This is much later in his career. This is, you know, he's a veteran actor at this point, and he's someone, you know, that I'm a fan of in a lot of his earlier Shaw Brothers films. I You know, him in the role as Tan Si Tung, that really worked. It was very convincing. My understanding is Tan Si Tung was actually fairly young. I think he was only in his 30s, but still he's an important figure. He's somebody. Again, I don't want to spoil it, but his significance requires an actor that can pull it off. I thought T Lung did it. Cynthia Khan was great. Again, Yang Fan was excellent. There's a number of really great performances in this movie. This is I was impressed with pretty much all of the action that I saw. There's one of the best bisections of a human body in this that I've ever seen, and the final battle is just epic. And yeah, but again, one of the things that really sold me on this is that opening sequence. It opens up with a sort of a sunset view of this sword form, and the cinematography is gorgeous. It was done by Raymond Lamb, so it's really high quality. You this is not the kind of film where things are, you know, not positioned well, or the edits are all off. This looks really nice from beginning to end, and I think that really helps because it's I love having that blend of great visuals, great action. Sammo Hung is one of the best in that respect, and Raymond Lamb is, you know, one of the best, and so together it really works. Um, the you know, the movie is a you know, is kind of a political statement, and it's and I think that's where a lot of the drama kind of comes from. So it you know, I would advise, if you watch this film, to read up a little bit on the late Qing, just so you understand some of the characters. I think that maybe where some of the confusion can come in is that people are not as familiar with this history, or not familiar with the characters, and so, you know, there's a you're expected to know some things when you're watching this. So it can be helpful. Just go on Wikipedia and look up the 100 Days Reform, I think it's called, or just look up Late Qing, or type in Wang Wu. Another name will appear, but I'm sure you'll find out who I'm talking about. And Tan Si Tung should be easy enough to track down. Though, and again, if my pronunciations are off, I apologize. I'm not very good at pronouncing a lot of these names, but you know, most of my knowledge I get from reading things. Yeah, so I thought it was a very solid movie with some really really athletic, you know, you know, solid pieces of action throughout, and it was, and the dramatic aspects of the film really worked for me. I was really drawn in by them. I really believed in the master student relationship between T Lung and Cynthia Khan. That was pretty crucial to the plot. There are traces of Fists of Fury in this movie. I don't know. Again, in the English version, it's called Blade of Fury. I don't know if the Chinese version alludes to that film. And sometimes, you know, the Bruce Lee film, where you have the Chinese and the Japanese martial arts schools. Sometimes it's called Fist of Fury. Sometimes it's called the Chinese Connection, depending on what your dub says. But there's allusions to it, and there's one scene in particular that is clearly, you know, a nod to that movie. Lo Wei was involved in this one, so I think he was the producer. So, you know, maybe that reason. So I would, I mean, it's a different period and it's a different plot, but I might, if I was describing this to a to somebody who is expressing interest, I might describe it as a wuxia version of Fist of Fury. It's kind of got that same vibe to it, and there is a Japanese character, and there is a sort of Chinese versus Japanese thing, even though the bulk of the conflict is between Chinese officials. So yeah, so I was really impressed with this one. I thought that the a lot of what really made it work was that opening scene that really sets the tone for everything. It's a you know, you'll have to see it for yourself, but I thought it was I like martial arts choreography that's fast, powerful. It looks like the actors are fit and can pull off the moves, and if they hit you with that sword, it would actually cut you. That's sort of what I like to see. This is, you know, the 90s. You get these performances that are almost they're of the caliber that you would expect to to witness if you went to like the circus or some kind of event where people train their whole lives to make their bodies an instrument like this. And there's stuff before this too that reaches that level as well. A lot of the Venom films, you'll see that kind of athleticism. But I just feel like in the 90s, in the wuxia genre in particular, so much of it, and they've gotten so tight at it that it's just, you know, whether it's this movie or you know, there's one of my favorite movies, Wing Chun, where they can just pull off these athletic feats like a punchline in a joke and make you laugh. And I don't know. I don't know if that's been equaled since. And this is a really great example of that kind of athletic martial arts choreography, where the editing, the choreography itself, the performance, and I don't know what else, just everything kind of works. So yeah, so I give this a big recommendation. Again, I do so knowing that a lot of people have been critical of it. So check it out. You know, maybe you'll disagree with me, but I was honestly surprised by the negative reviews. I didn't understand the negative criticisms. A lot of times I'll read negative criticisms and I'll be like, oh yeah, I can see why they would think that. I didn't get it. I really didn't. So, you know, maybe I'm just not smart enough and I missed something really crucial. Maybe a bunch of plot holes went over my head, but this was a thoroughly enjoyable movie, and it's definitely worth a rewatch. It's definitely the kind of movie you'll see, and if you have not heard about these events, I guarantee you're going to go and you're going to try to find out about them, because it's that kind of film. It's the film that prompts people to go buy history books and read up on the events and see how well the movie matches up with the real history. I love movies like that because I'm a big history buff, and I think that that's one of the best ways to get people interested in history, is to give them a little taste of something exciting, even if it's maybe not 100% aligned with the reality, and then they go off and they get a book on the Qing Dynasty and they read up on it. So yeah, so I recommend this enthusiastically. It's a great Sammo Hung film. It's an unusual Sammo Hung film. It's not one that it's not something I would not have pictured this if somebody said, hey, here's a Sammo Hung movie. So it's really awesome film. And I do apologize. I do these videos either at night or in the morning before my wife goes to work, so I apologize for the interruption. But she's got to get ready for work, and I don't really have any other time during the day to do these. So all right, I will be back on. Hopefully, I'll have another review. Hopefully, I'll be a little less groggy. You can see by my shave here that that I'm, you know, I'm in deep in some writing stuff. So these are maybe a little bit less focused than I'd like them to be. But anyways, I will talk to you later, and until then, have a great day.